Gobbet of Pus 62. What and Why? From October 19th, 2008. What they have is easy, sometimes. The culture, or the serology, or the syndrome gives me a hint as to what is going on. But why? Why do people get infections? Oftentimes it seems to be bad luck, wrong time, wrong place. And sometimes it's the patient's. There is great variability in the human immune system. Yours is not the same as mine. Some people are born with the ability to respond to infections, some less so. Variation is the clay upon which evolution works. Clinically, I have only the most primitive assays at my disposal to evaluate the immune system, and I wager that in another 15 years or so, I will have far more sophisticated genetic tests to determine why a patient has an infection. But this week, I was able to answer the question, why, twice. One patient, who presented with pneumococcal meningitis, turned out to have an IgM deficiency. Not common at all. I cannot find that IgM deficiency is specifically associated with pneumococcal meningitis, but it is the first class of antibody to come online for infection, so I am crediting the IgM deficiency for his relatively slow response to therapy. The other diagnosis is more common. A patient with recurrent sinopulmonary infection, sore throats, and, quote, catches everything, unquote. A common complaint of patients. Turns out the patient has an antibody deficiency as well. His total IgG, as well as IgG subtypes 2 and 4, and the IgA levels are half normal. While the absolute antibody levels correlate poorly with infection, it seems reasonable to ascribe her recurrent minor infections to her low antibody levels. Antibody deficiencies are more common than realized by most clinicians. Data from 127,000 patients from the Rochester Epidemiology Group. And really, where would we be without Rochester, Minnesota? They have more data they've collected over the years at the Mayo. Anyway, they found 158 of primary immunodeficiency cases over a 31-year period. B-cell defects, i.e. the ability to make antibodies, accounted for 78% of cases, and were divided equally between IgA deficiencies, IgG subclass deficiencies, and general hypogammaglobulinemia. Say that 3 times real fast. That's a rate of 10.3 per 100,000, more common than tuberculosis. So anyone who presents to my clinic with recurrent infections gets antibody levels and their IgG subtypes as part of their really crude evaluation for their immunodeficiency. And some recent studies have suggested that one of the manifestations of antibody deficiencies is recurrent staph boils. Anybody seen any of those recently? So anyway, I check the patients and I hit pay dirt a couple times a year. What to do is problematic. To treat or not to treat? I don't know. The relevant references were incidence and temporal trends of primary immunodeficiency in Olmsted County, Minnesota, a population-based cohort study. Abstract from ACAAI 2008. And Clinical Infectious Diseases 2008, infections in 252 patients with common variable immunodeficiency. That's this Gobbet of Pus. The family's watching American Idol, and I'm going to go join them. May the Lord have mercy on my soul.